All right, folks. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Launch Sequence Podcast. It is another week. This one's live, though. We're doing this one a little bit differently. Now, normally the show is live for supporters in our Discord channel, anybody who wants to come and join us. But this week, we are live on Twitch and YouTube. I'm joined by a friend and fellow YouTuber of Star Citizen, Casa Black, also fellow enthusiast of the roadmap. And today, the roadmap is the topic. So there's a couple things to talk about, obviously. But we've got a pretty big change to the schedule for Star Citizen that is kind of, it's a big topic this week. So we're going to touch on that. We're going to get into what that means, but also a little bit more about like what's just going on in the game in general and the lead up to 4.0. So thanks for joining me and welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. O7 out there to everybody. How's it going?
Good. It's good for me. I'm, just enjoying the fact that everything that I've released in the last couple months that says 323.2 is now wrong. It's nothing new. It happens all the time covering Star Citizen.
100%.
But yeah, that's a fun one. But yeah, I'm good. How about you?
Oh, not bad. Just trying to get through this 323 update and see what comes. I mean, what everybody I think is really looking forward to, which is what we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, doing good.
Cool. Have you gotten a lot of chances to jump in and play? Have you gotten to see the new Xeno threat and everything?
I have not done the events. I'm not usually one who handles the events a lot. I'm more just, if I'm not playing with the org, which I haven't done much this year, I'm usually just doing my own thing or working on content, getting footage for something. But yeah, I've experienced a lot of 323. I've come out with a few little guides just to help out, get people adjusted to some of the new things. But, I've done my fair share.
You've been on the podcast before, but it's been a little while. A lot of new people here. Give someone like a layout of what your content is, but also what you're aiming to do in this game. What you joined for, what you're looking for.
I joined for a overall space MMO. That's what I was looking for, but I never played Eve, and I was, Eve's been out so long. I was kind of looking for like the next big thing. So I came here with MMO aspirations. Of course, we're still lacking a bunch of things that are going to make this an MMO. So, I've kind of tried to figure out where I want to fit in. FPS isn't necessarily my thing, but I've still done it, and what I've done, I've enjoyed. I stick to a lot of industrial gameplay. The content that I create, I usually try to find the things that I'm seeing people need help with, and I try to, offer quick content, things that you can get an answer for in less than like 5 minutes. I also covered the roadmap, which hasn't had anything to cover this year, so that's kind of, taking some wind out of my sails here. But I mainly just try to help players, especially new players, try to figure things out. I've also recently started streaming on Twitch, literally last week or two. So, and my whole focus there is to try to catch new players who come in with questions so I can answer them live or try to walk through things live. So that's what I've been focusing on.
It's funny how much the Star Citizen as a game hasn't only counted on the people who are doing the marketing, but also people who are doing like full-on tutorials, a lot of new player stuff, teaching people how to play the game. And then like the actual services, there are websites that just straight up take the place of a normal service a game would have, like tells you where items are and stuff. And it's crazy to just how much this game is driven by the economy. There's a lot of people doing good work at CIG, but you have probably put in dozens, hundreds of hours of consolidating roadmap information so people can understand a little better what's going on.
Yeah, the roadmap. I mean, just anything. There's a pretty high skill ceiling for new players when they come in because nothing's hardly explained. Even with some of the things we got at some of the starting or some of the cities recently in the last year, it still doesn't explain a lot. And so literally one of my biggest tutorial videos is how to find where to land at Area 18. Which is kind of crazy to me that that's actually a thing, but it is. There are so many people that just don't know how to land or where to land at Area 18. So it could be something as simple as that. It could be how the inventory works, which of course is going to change here really soon. There's just so many big questions that can drive players away, and the whole thing I try to do is just keep them here, not against their will necessarily, but just to get rid of the easy things that I think that they could learn and, be able to enjoy the game.
Yeah, thought you were keep them here. We're just going to take their credit card and not let them ever leave.
That's another video.
I'm totally on board with what you're doing, because the whole point I set out on my YouTube channel was to do kind of the same thing outside of the game. And it's like, there's a lot to know. It's really hard to keep up with it all or to understand what's important. So trying to just summarize that, or make a little bit more sense of like how long the timelines are too, is important to get to know the game. Do you do any of like the out of game stuff? Like, have you been participating in Alien Week or anything like that?
Alien ships are not really my thing. I spent a lot of time on Info Runners, just watching them, and we kind of agree similar about how expensive the ships are there. So right away, I've never really been a big fan of the alien ships because of the pricing. But Invictus, I definitely took part in that. Tried to, I swear every time I was flying into Everest Harbor, there was always fireworks, which was great. I always felt like they were for me, when I was coming there. But no, I do try to, definitely stay on top of things. I'm always up to date on, everything going on with Inside Star Citizen. Most of the comments we're seeing from the devs and things like that, including, the thing they dropped this week or yesterday, right before Inside Star Citizen, about the change in the patch number.
Yeah. They've some actually pretty interesting stuff. We're not really going to talk about the lore updates that they did, but there's some interesting stuff dropped this week that
definitely
points towards a little bit of where the game is going. And we are also in the midst of Alien Week, and I'm just going to do a little shout out here because I love Mrs. Tomato. She's amazing, and she is taking part in the Alien Week competition for the cooking, and she made one of those Alaprat skewers from Pyro out of cake. And
I just saw it on Twitter like a couple of hours ago, and I was like, yeah, she's bringing that A game, definitely.
I love it. We've been watching Is It Cake on Netflix, and so it was cool to watch one actually be made in front of me, because I, good Lord, could not make one. But folks, if you're watching, go check it out. I'm dropping the link in chat for all of you who are live. Go give it a vote. Give Mrs. Tomato some love. That's it's a pretty cool looking thing.
It really is.
So now that we've got Alien Week out of the way, Invictus Week out of the way, everything that's happened already out of the way, let's talk about what is ahead of us. Now, this podcast is coming out on Monday, so things could happen. We're still early on Friday, and you could be listening to this later next week. 3.24, now that it's called, could already be an Evocati by the time people are watching this, but let's just assume it's not. It has been changed from 323.2 to 324. Why do you think that is?
I mean, right away when I saw the news yesterday, I did flip out. I saw it as just a number change. It made sense, with the amount of features that's coming into it. It does feel more like a full patch almost. Not quite as big as 323, but it still feels bigger than a point patch. So for me, when I saw that, I was like, I can see it for a couple of things. Of course, that point patch, it's just easier, rolls off the tongue a little better. Plus, they can actually put out a trailer for it, and I think it'll just look better that way. So I think it was a good move.
What would you say does? I mean, we had like the walkthrough last year. Jared did the whole thing on the whiteboard talking about how their updates work, and we've been around and watching it long enough. We've seen things like 3.18.2 turn into 3.19. We've seen 3.17.2, which could have been its own, major patch. And I think it was like 3.16 was another patch cycle that was just kind of added on to the previous one. Can't remember which one specifically, but like we've seen this kind of stuff happen before. And it's always a little bit different, the reason or the way it happens. What do you think would dictate a 324 as opposed to 323.2? Like, if this was just purely a content question, why would it need to switch numbers for you?
Well, for me, I mean, like they said, you've got a couple of big things, and these aren't just like, they're not just like smaller features. These are pretty big features here. So if you take a look at like 318.1, like I think they fixed the ASOP terminals. That was like a reason for the patch and something that needed to happen. 321.1, I think they added like a new mission type that didn't make it in time for 321. So when they do things like that, that's like a small feature. But when you talk about something like freight elevators is going to change the way we play. As far as, I mean, we already see a little bit of it now, but you're going to see everything from, you hit I, you're not going to have that anymore. You're going to have to go to a terminal for everything. You're going to have your freight elevators, to load your ships. You're going to have all these new features, and I mean, it's a big deal. It's not like, I don't think it was, really, worthy of a point patch. I think it was, it's solid enough to be its own thing.
Would you say, because they kind of talk about how it needs to be a tech sort of thing. If these features were big enough to already be a patch, why do you think it wasn't 324 just from the get-go? Like when they delayed them out of 323, why didn't they just be like, oh, we're just going to release 324?
I think part of that is maybe they thought it could be weeks and not a month or two,
So you think
I
the
think
timing's part of it?
I think the timing part of it. Yeah, I think as soon as they saw it was going to creep into July, they're like, yeah, it probably makes more sense to make this. And maybe it's part of them trying to say, at the end of the year, hey, we actually put out 3 good patches, or maybe it could even be 4 patches by the end of this. But I don't think this is definitely is worthy of like, some of the other patches we've had. But at the same time, it is pretty big. It's just, I don't know. It's just CIG kind of being weird. What I'm kind of worried about though, is that are they going to add more things to 324 that could possibly delay it in Evocati? If they try to make this a fully fleshed out 324, are they going to add more character creation stuff that we're still lacking and they've talked about? We know they've worked on things like that. I don't want anything else that's going to push it back further. That's the only thing.
I don't think we'll see things that push it back, but I definitely think we're going to see those sorts of late additions that we sometimes see to bigger patches where it's just like, it's the little things that sneak in, like,
right.
Like last year it was some racing. Was it last year? Gosh, my brain. I think it was last year. We saw like some racing stuff come into an update that we weren't exactly expecting, but they were like, well, we've been working on this and it was ready by now. And even sometimes when a patch gets delayed enough.
I think you're right. I think it was like, definitely, I think the go-kart track was one of those things that snuck in like that. Maybe some of the Arena Commander racing. There are a few things that they're not sneaking in, but it's things that they've talked about over the past month, like fixes. Maybe we'd see like a Klesher fix because Klesher's having so many issues right now, or there's a couple of ships that need some work, and they have teased or said that the 323.2 patch is when we may see some of those things. So I expect those things to be in there, but I just hope they don't sneak anything else in there.
Yeah, possibly the weapon stuff we're seeing. Maybe, I don't know. That's probably 4.0 stuff.
Maybe we've seen facial tattoos in the ISC. Maybe that'll be part. Like more character creation stuff. So
they definitely said in the announcement that there was some other stuff. We just don't we don't know what. I bet it's some small things. Fingers crossed it's the horde mode in AC. That's got me so freaking excited. Oh my gosh. With the way that they've been improving FPS, I'm like that's the problem with the missions in the PU, right? You go in and you don't have enough people to shoot.
Yeah, exactly. There's quite a few issues with FPS, but I saw someone post on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, maybe today, they said they don't want to see any more features added until server meshing. And they got a point, but server meshing is supposed to be the next thing after 324. So
I feel like we've been saying that since like 2021.
Yeah, 100%. Because it feels like the servers kind of get worse and worse as things go on to you.
Yeah, and it's like the weird conundrum of Star Citizen. Basically, ever since Microtech came in, is like, everything is degrading further and further till server meshing. And I can't imagine, I'm sure they don't put pressure on these people internally, but the community is obviously going crazy waiting for the game to reach better stability. The game developers are waiting for server meshing to implement stuff. The team who's working on server meshing must have so much pressure.
Oh yeah. And what they're doing is groundbreaking too. I mean, that's the other thing. And I mean, your videos definitely on server meshing have, opened many eyes, including my own, to like just how big a deal server meshing is in general. So definitely there's a lot riding on it.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole game's riding on it basically.
We were talking about in chat maybe last week or the week before, that one of the more interesting things, I kind of want to make a video about this. The most direct connection that I can find between GTA 6 and Star Citizen right now are server meshing. Because at least for according to a patent they got, apparently Rockstar is working on some form of server meshing. They call it, I think, server jumping or something like that,
Okay.
simultaneous server loading or something. But it sounds like for the next GTA Online, they're working on something similar. And I think it's really cool to see a company like that working on similar technology and
Hmm.
almost in parallel. And
Yeah.
realize that I think it was something somebody had said on a podcast earlier this year. Server meshing tech up behind it is basically just the next generation of loading screens.
Yeah,
And
it is.
oh
I agree.
God, I just want it to work though.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a major accomplishment. And the fact that, CIG is, a company that was just made for this game literally is, I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, Rockstar's had plenty of years to be developing this, and it'd be interesting to know how long they've been developing this and, how these two are running side by side with each other. But it's going to
Yeah.
be something to see.
They've had quite a bit of time since the last GTA. Sheesh.
That is true. And you gotta think it may be because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, how about, so obviously, I mean, we've kind of touched on this. A lot of people believe this renaming of the update means
Hmm.
a delay to the update. This is an excuse to basically say we're not doing 323.2. We're going to wait and do a bigger
Hmm.
3.24 later. Based on
Yeah.
previous patches or just your feelings on this one, do you feel like that is the direction they're going? Does it mean a delay, or what's your take?
Um, Without having seen an Evocati yet, or I'm not that I'm an Evocati, but not having it been there to hear what people are going to say about it, it's kind of hard to know what that for. If the first iteration comes in and it's really bad, then I would be more worried about it, it possibly getting pushed out maybe into August, which would kind of, wouldn't be great. People would definitely be kind of upset about that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it needs to be ready. It has to go out when it's ready, and I understand that, but many people don't. But I want to see the state of it. It feels like they felt like they had a handle on it the way they described and talked about it. Of course, it could be spin, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see it when it actually gets, if it comes out today or over the weekend or whatever. I'm just curious to see what people are going to say about it.
Yeah. My debate is it coming out in Evocati this week or something, as we kind of expect with 323.2, or is it coming, in a month?
Yeah.
Because I expect 3.23.2 to come out within weeks or days, but by the end of June really was what I was expecting, at least in
Yeah.
terms of a wider PTU release. It doesn't look like we'll hit that, but I do
No.
hope that we see some pretty good time in Evocati by the end of this month.
Yeah.
If it goes past that and doesn't hit Evocati, then I would take this as an actual
Mhm.
delay to 3.23.2. As of right
Right.
now, I still see it as the delay that made 323.2, just renaming
Yeah.
the number.
I think what the only thing I'm worried about is it almost begs to ask, why didn't this come out with 4.0 with server meshing? Because it feels like something that may tie into server meshing, or it could be affected by server meshing. So it's kind of weird that it's coming out right before that. But I mean, I don't really know the ins and outs of it, and if there's anything going on with that. We still don't know why it was delayed to begin with. It could be something that's completely unrelated to performance and servers, but it is kind of a question that I've thought about, with this. When freight elevators and stuff, they were saying they were going to be coming out like earlier this year. I was just kind of surprised, because I honestly thought we were going to need server meshing for those things to work good, but we'll see, I guess.
Man, they've wanted to do this cargo refactor. We've been in the cargo refactor itself since
Mm.
2022, fall of
Hmm.
2022. I think they started
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
I'm betting they wanted to have our cargo in a better place by the time server meshing came out, because the people who want
Yeah.
to like build stuff for server meshing have to be able to use
Hmm.
the cargo system.
Yeah, and I mean, there, it this the whole server meshing thing too. You got to wonder what's going to happen with it. As far as like what new things are they gonna have to change because of this? I mean, when 318 came out, there were things they just didn't foresee, like the ships that were getting stuck in the hangars, or just or wrecked outside the hangars, causing issues and not disappearing. Things like that, they're just not going to know about. So, and I mean, even the mission system, you see, that's having to be redone just to work with server meshing. So
Thank God.
yeah, yeah. So you got to wonder what else have they covered their bases, or is this going to be more, reactionary instead of proaction?
Do you think that because you said it earlier that what they were saying about these features, the persistent hangars, the freight elevators, the
Mm-hmm.
cargo updates, they were kind of edge cases. They were just
Mm-hmm.
polishing things off, getting the edge
Right.
cases figured out so that
Yeah,
they could get
this
out the
doesn't feel
door.
like an edge case to be gone a
Right.
month,
Do you think
Yeah.
something changed, or like you said, do you think it was kind of spin?
Uh, I don't. Maybe at the time they thought they had something nailed down, and then as they got into it, after Invictus, they're like, as soon as Invictus was over, and it took a while for them to figure out, what was going on for Xenothreat, with with those Evocati tests and stuff or PTU tests. I kept thinking, okay, as soon as they get that pushed out, we should immediately see them drop it in Evocati for the freight elevators and stuff. And the fact that they haven't, and they've still kind of pushed it back a week or two now, I'm just like, I'm starting to really wonder if there's something more that's happened, to make it not work right.
Yeah, we'll see.
That
It
feels, that
is
feels like a
interesting.
real concern.
I see people in chat here saying that there's a possible Evocati version going up tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But those first impressions, now Evocati is not the best way to judge whether a
Right.
patch is going out or not. But those
Right.
first impressions on just how well this feature works, you can kind of tell the difference between like, oh, these are blockers that need to get figured out versus, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is broken. This is going to take a while to fix.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not reliable, but hopefully
Yeah. Well,
it looks good.
323 when it came out first in Evocati, it was pretty reliable because you could tell there was months to go, and it wasn't going to be something you were going to see within a month. So I think we can maybe kind of gauge. It'll be interesting to see if it feels like it's a few weeks away or at least a month away. If it's a month away, I think that'll be a little bit more concerning.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk a little more broadly. I want to come back to actually the cargo changes a little bit later. We're going to talk about what those include for 3.24, but I want to talk more broadly about the roadmap right now and how they're doing on it. So it's basically been non-existent. I think the last time we talked was after they did the refactor. So they were doing just a couple corners at a time.
Yeah.
But we've had that model for over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel like the roadmap is for Star Citizen versus what they used to do with it?
I mean, there is no roadmap currently other than, just the tiny updates that are giving us about what we basically already know, or just to confirm the things that we, are expecting to be in an update. When they announced that they were going to kind of hold off and they were making plans for 1.0, I was thinking, okay, maybe it'll be a month or two. And then as it got to be about 3 or 4 months, I started believing people, and they were like, they're not going to share anything until CitizenCon. And I was like, now that sounds about right. There's no reason for them to, at this point, to even mess with it. But as soon as they said the 1.0 roadmap and what they want to work on, I think they're still probably waiting on server meshing to come in, maybe before they give us a full update on what 1.0 is. I still think they probably may need to know how it's going to work first before they, can really say everything that they want in 1.0. Or maybe the things on the teams that they're scheduling, some of them could be working on things that are just for server meshing. Because, like we said, we saw the mission system, but what other systems are being affected by server meshing? So I think the last time we saw the roadmap update, last fall or whatever, or into winter, there was mentions of things that they were having to focus on that were going to be related to server meshing. And so, yeah, I'm curious as to see what all is going to change because of that. But the roadmap, this year is just, been nothing.
So you think they might change up the idea of 1.0 based on how server meshing is doing, or how it proves out right now?
I think that there's probably some things they're waiting on to really say these are the things that we're going to have, and maybe there's something that's hanging. They're like, well, we really need to see how this plays out before we definitely put this on the 1.0 roadmap, or maybe it's something that we know may not work as well, and we'll have to push that until after a post 1.0, whatever that would be. But I don't know. I'm trying to think about it. They have to know what the teams are working on at this point, so it's kind of weird that they're not sharing what they've been working on or what they're working towards, and I don't know. It's just very strange that they haven't even just told us what they are currently working on.
They're talking about it quite a bit.
Yeah, if you go by the only thing you can go by is the monthly report. So you can kind of see a little bit. I mean, that's the only roadmap information that we kind of have right now is just what they did in the previous month. And so, you see things like scanning is on there, and that's wonderful that they're working on that. But the roadmap helps you see exactly what their projected time is, what teams are working on it, and those are the things that we're just not getting anymore,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's hard because 1.0 is there's so many different things that could be. This could be the equivalent of an early access game. This could be equivalent to an actual launch game, or like a AAA launch game, which is sort of somewhere in between at this point. We don't know if like 1.0 includes the very, very, very integral details of like you can use your Hadron Collider on your Endeavor, or if it's just like, okay, base building is here and crafting and like the basic stuff.
Right.
So all of that, it's really just a mystery until they say anything. But I'm still hopeful we see something this summer. I think they could really do a lot to build long-term build hype all the way out from 324 till CitizenCon if they used that a little bit, that roadmap.
Yeah, and I mean, and maybe when Pyro comes out, maybe they'll do something then. Maybe we'll hear something else from. I doubt we'll hear from Chris Roberts again, but maybe we'll hear something. I feel like Pyro is a really big deal, and so with it, maybe we'll get some news. But then again, as it's getting closer to CitizenCon, they start holding everything close to the vest. So I don't know what they're going to do.
Oh yeah, gosh, last year hurt. That segment of time was painful last year when they were doing that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's kind of a weird cycle anyway, because usually we get like a information dump at CitizenCon, but it's like everything that came out at CitizenCon is stuff that we know about now, and we've seen a lot of it come out. We know there's still some more things that need to come out, but seeing something new news, I don't think we're really going to get much new news until CitizenCon, especially at this point. Once summer hits, it starts to get a little bit of a drought. So
yeah, they have a good format to Inside Star Citizen this year, and it's like it's all about the next patch, right? So what has me really excited is that if 4.0 is the next patch, that means we should be seeing mostly stuff we haven't seen before, except okay. All right. I can see the comment. I can hear the keyboards clattering already. We've been on the road to 4.0 for 4 years.
Yes,
I don't mean necessarily like that. I mean like the more detailed stuff. Like the ability for, let's say, the power system to function at outposts. We might see something like that in ISC this season. Or charge and drain stuff we might see. I'm excited for this season of Inside Star Citizen because I don't see how they could not give us anything that's worthy of hype.
Yeah, I mean, considering like the whole first season of ISC this year was just showing us everything we knew was coming in 323. I mean, seeing something new is going to be definitely hype worthy for sure. So
what do you think is going to be like the secret sneaker in feature of 4.0?
I mean, we have engineering coming. The thing I'd love to see is scanning, but I just don't. We have no idea where they're at with scanning.
Like FPS
sneaker,
scanning?
maybe some different creatures. I mean, the creatures were kind of like the big sneak this year that came in. We do know they're working on more. So, but as far as like things that we don't know, I have no idea. Like, just, again, without the roadmap, seeing something that they may have, talked about. I don't really think of anything from the monthly report that really, stands out as something that could be ready that we're waiting on. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to sneak anything. I think we're probably going to get exactly what hopefully we'll get exactly what we think is coming.
It's exactly
I'm not going to say engineering is going to come in hot, because who knows? There could be something wrong. There's so many things with that.
Yeah. I hope that we get quantum travel rework for 4.0.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I forgot all about quantum travel. Yeah, that would be nice. Definitely.
Yeah, that feels like it needs to happen.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because the only footage we've seen of them traveling between systems has been placeholder footage, right? So it'll be interesting to see what that comes into be too.
Oh yeah. Like they could talk about Right, they could talk about jump points in inside
Mm-hmm.
Star Citizen this season. I
Yep.
forgot about that because we don't
Yep.
know too much about that. It's mostly
No.
ambiguous details.
Mm-hmm.
How about the whole idea of 1.0 and the fact that and I know folks, it's nobody wants to hear about this, but why are they talking about it in your opinion?
Um. Well, I did actually. I put out a video. I don't know when. Probably April. Where I was talking about one of the biggest things I liked was Rich Tyrer just switching from Squadron over to the PU. To me, that was just like the best move that they could have made. It definitely made me happy because he seems like somebody who can get in there and get things done, as he proved with Squadron. So I think they had to start thinking about, as soon as they put him in that position, they're like, what is a 1.0? What does that mean? And what can we accomplish? And when can we accomplish it? So from that standpoint, from a planning standpoint, I'm all about that, because project management is something that, I think this overall in the last 10, 11, 12 years or whatever, the game has had issues with, or the company has had issues with. So to see that come into play now and see him, being the one that's, hey, this is what I'm really curious to see what he considers a 1.0. Is it 5 systems like everybody, speculates? Does it include, of course, I think it includes base building and, of course, a better flight model than, a fully fleshed out flight model than what we have now that kind of makes most people happy if you can do that. But overall, I don't know what else a 1.0 is other than the features that we're kind of the hot features we're waiting for. Live bounty hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Our ships working a little bit better, or the features that we're waiting on the ships. I hope all of those features that we're waiting on for the ships that are in the game now are going to be part of 1.0. But again, we don't even know what a time frame on 1.0 is either. So
yeah, it's definitely a ways off.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Rich is a part of that push towards defining that more? Do you think him coming into it, he was like an instigator and asking that question, or was it already headed in that direction?
I think he was the instigator asking the question, because they put the PU 2 years before, whenever Rich left, PU was put on the back burner, so there was no thoughts. There was no reason to think about what a 1.0 is. But then he comes out of Squadron, and that's probably if you're a project manager, to me, that's the very first thing you're going to ask. We need to get this game released, just like we just got Squadron. What does that mean? What does it look like? And so I think that was definitely him, 100%.
So does that make this feel sort of like the initial release of the progress tracker? They introduced it as the new roadmap. It was back when we were talking about they rechanged everything because we were the noisy roadmap watchers and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is the sort of same thing? They're just resetting the progress tracker as like the next chunk of stuff to do?
I mean, they pretty much really are, because and one of the things I've been thinking about too is, okay, we've known about Pyro coming. We know that engineering, we know all the things that were on the roadmap that were coming, and they're pretty much, for the most part, going to be in by 4.0. There's still some things, of course, like live bounty hunting and a few other things like that aren't in the game yet, or won't be for 4.0. But I think we're seeing a hard reset, because a lot of the things that were on the roadmap, you're looking at like freight elevators and things, those are on the roadmap for like more than 2 years, 2 to 3 years. Yeah. And so anything that they're going to add is going to be that way too as well. I mean, especially bigger features, they're going to be 2 to 3 years out. So I believe this is like a hard reset of the roadmap, which, I mean, of course, when they drop that, there's going to be so much news in that. It's going to take, I don't know how many hours to put a video out for that. But yeah, it's exciting. And if I have to wait for October for it, that's fine. But, I think we're going to see a hard reset of what they're working on, what's coming. And then, of course, the question becomes, well, after 4.0, when and what are they working on? Because they had so much content they showed us at CitizenCon last year, and we know they were still working on that all the way up until its release, all the way into Invictus. They were still working on a lot of it. Of course, we don't know what else they're working on, but these things are not going to be ready after 4.0. So what does after 4.0 even look like? What is going to be coming? Because we really don't know.
Yeah, I think that is the key to it. Why they're doing it is that 4.0 is the can't even say it's the next major update. 4.0 is it's somewhere, okay? It's like kind of close, I guess.
Yeah.
And that is they at that point they're meeting a goal that they set out in like 2016.
Yeah.
So 8 years ago, they're meeting an 8-year milestone. So the big question is like, okay, what's next? And they could say, they could say any number of things is next, but what is the significance of that? 4.0 was server meshing. So what's the next big milestone for them? It sounds to me like it is a release, right? It's not, base building is not their next big milestone. It's something they're doing. So they're not setting base building as the end goal of the roadmap. It's like whatever is what's following. And I feel like they don't have anything else to really message on if they want to build hype or get people's like long-term imagination energy going. So that's kind of what they're,
I mean, there's always ships. The ships fill out. Yeah, ships definitely fill out the gaps when there's no features. I mean, they can have you can have no features, and then you can throw the Polaris in there, and people will lose their minds, and they'll be all over that thing, and they'll find all kinds of things to use it for the next few months. And the devs can kind of sit back and relax, and keep working hard at what they're doing. So
yeah, but even then, it's not a continuous goal, like something the entire community can grab onto. You could say, yeah, the Idris, but a lot of people don't care about an Idris. You could say the Kraken, but a lot of people don't care. But like an actual functioning game, or rather like a server meshed game like 4.0, those feel like general flagpoles they could put down for the whole community to look at.
I mean, when you look at this year has been kind of slow because we haven't got a lot of features. We've got a lot of quality of life updates, best quality of life updates we've had in probably ever. But as far as new features to do, things to do, yeah, there wasn't a lot. The cargo missions that are coming was one of the things that many people were looking forward to. And so for that feature, that was actually going to bring something new to be dropped, kind of was a disappointment for many people.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that. So 3.23 was, in my opinion, the biggest patch we've seen since 3.0. The only patch that comes close to it is 3.15 or 3.18. But it was a significant patch in tech optimization and I guess you could call it quality of life features, whatever you're going to call it. But there was a good chunk of stuff in that patch. However, a lot of people would say everything was wiped out of that patch. Now, I understand the sentiment that the most important things to a lot of people were delayed from that patch. But how do you feel about the patch that we got versus the one we would have had if we had all those cargo stuff put into it? You kind of were just getting into it, but more of your personal feelings.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. That was those things. They let me down. It wasn't like to where I was like, oh, I'm not gonna play this patch now. But those were the hot ticket items I was looking forward to. I mean, character creation's fine, even though you wear your helmet so much. It's hard to really get excited about your face and what it looks like at times for the most of your gameplay. Of course, the map's probably was probably my favorite change and everything, because every time I use it, it's just great. But the things that really had me hyped definitely was freight elevators, just because freight elevators, I mean, they're just awesome. I mean, to be able to to take your stuff and not necessarily have to go sell it right away. You can store things. You can change things around. You can there's just so many good things about it. So and that does kind of feel like quality of life as well. It's definitely not like adding more gameplay. I mean, it kind of does, because you are having to you can be player crew and you're sitting there trying to do your move your boxes around and stuff. But ultimately, it's not like a new storyline or anything, or a new quest system or anything. But that, and then the missions, the cargo missions, I was really excited for those. So much so that I wanted to make sure I had I picked up a caterpillar during Invictus. Well, I got the ironclad, which gave me the caterpillar. But yeah. So
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The cargo missions were the most interesting part to me as well. That's just another thing that's like 7 years old, that's been broken for most of that time. We used to point newcomers to, and now we can't because they're so unreliable. And seeing those updated and getting reputation with them and progression and all that was really exciting. That's like freight elevators are cool and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, that doesn't feel like it really changes. Like, it changes the game for sure. It's huge.
Yes, it does.
But it doesn't really change the way we play the game, because you're still doing the same missions and stuff, you know, but
Mm-hmm.
getting progression actually added into something like cargo hauling felt like a longer term sort of thing, just like more tangible. And I was bummer to see that get delayed.
Yeah. Yeah. That one did hurt. And, so I mean, Pyro coming out, it is going to add a whole bunch of new gameplay. And so that does excite me, even though the thought of the danger being there and, but then again, my wife, she's like, she is not looking forward to going to Pyro. And I'm like, it's still a big place though. It's really big and how things are now before server meshing really allows more players to be, in the verse at the same time. It's sometimes hard to run across other players. Like you can usually get your stuff done and do things. And I think it may be similar to Pyro. So, as far as that goes, I think, it'll be interesting to see a lot more gameplay features that we can actually do, getting to do new things. That's, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I hope the charge and drain doesn't come in without any actual charge and drain applications.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I kind of see 324 as like, you're on a trip, you're all excited for this big vacation, and you stop off and you see the world's largest spoon before you get to Disney World. 4.0 is Disney World, 3.24 is the largest spoon. So,
talking about 1.0 before we move on from it, tell me, this should be a fun one. And I did not write this down for you beforehand. Is this
okay?
How do you think they're going to fund the game after 1.0?
I mean, will ship sales really go away? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it does make sense that, and once you're actually playing the game, there's no more wipes. You can just get everything. You can earn everything in game, but you still have people that don't. There's so many games where, you create a new mount, and new $50 mount, and people are going to buy it. It's just how it is. I think that ship sales are always going to be a major part of the game. I don't know how, I think the way the pricing structure works, they get people, especially on concept ships, are like, hey, buy it now because this is the cheapest price you can get it for. So I think that's still going to be a thing. They're still going to announce new ships. You're still going to, if you want it at the cheapest price, you're going to get it now. If you want to be one of those people that holds off and waits, you're going to have to wait for it to be released. And then wait for another 3 months or whatever in patch cycle before you can actually get it in game. I mean, I don't know if that's the only way they're going to make money. I mean, once they introduce base building, you've got base cosmetics that could be done. I hope they don't do more land grabs to where they can, you can like buy the land that you want.
Yeah,
that could be a thing still. I don't know, but there's a lot of ways that they could look at other places that monetize cosmetics. Of course, still another thing. I mean, So
yeah, I think
that's my guess.
I think ship sales will absolutely be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
My last hope and desire is that those ships are limited. That they stick to maybe like the more basic ships or something like that. I do think obviously we're going to get the concepts, or rather the ship announced probably like a quarter or two before it actually comes out. But I'm also really like, they need to make sure that if they're doing that, they're giving the ship to everybody at the same time. Like the people who buy that concept, sure, they can get the ship, but like they can't do the whole exclusive 3 months. If you didn't pay real money, you don't get it yet kind of thing.
Yeah.
That can't fly after 1.0 in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been a fan of that anyway, but yeah, I mean, I see why they do it now, but ultimately we'll see what they do. I haven't really thought about the funding of it because I'm like, oh, I've paid my money, I'm not really,
man,
I haven't thought that far ahead, but yeah.
Oh God, that's a topic that I've been toying with over the last year or so. I was actually just talking to Mrs. Tomato earlier today about doing a video about it, but I'm still not ready to, man. It's just such a deep topic. I mean, when you start to talk about the subscriptions they have right now that are optional and how they can monetize those, you talk about cosmetics for spaceships, hangars, houses, bases, underground facilities. You talk about like parts that you can get, recipes for bases, and like there's just so many ways they can monetize this game.
Wow, yeah. I hope they don't do that with the recipes. That would be crazy. I mean, I won't put it past them. I'll just say that.
Yeah. It's definitely a sliding scale of what you can do. I think there are ways to monetize things like crafting recipes, attaching in-game effective value, like
Hmm.
a value that would make a difference, like you being able to buy a recipe that gives you a gun that crafts better than another gun or something.
Mm-mm.
That
That's pay
no,
to win.
yeah, no, not
Yeah.
that.
Now,
But
now, maybe they can do like they can sell consumables to where you can craft things faster. You know, I mean, that's kind of borderline too. But there are games that'll do things like that. You know, consumables can be a whole thing on
yeah,
its own.
it's a slippery slope. But yeah, the
It is.
monetization I think is an interesting topic because it's an incredibly expensive game to make, and
Hmm.
they're not gonna slow down afterward. They're going to need to continue to make systems after release, and like Squadron
Hmm.
42 sales are going to help them quite a bit. I know people say
Yeah.
everybody who's bought Squadron 42 is into it. That's insane to me because
Yeah. Yeah.
the marketing of Squadron 42 is so small compared to the overall industry, but
Yeah.
that will help them for some time. But
Yeah.
the MMO is expensive.
Yeah. It is. You know, you also got to wonder a 1.0 release. What does that do as far as ships that haven't been released yet? You know, because they're not going to have every ship released for a 1.0. I mean, they're still backlogged so far. I mean, you see how long it's taken them to do just the Polaris. You know, so
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So we are 6 months into 2024.
Mm.
A lot's been happening. We don't have a roadmap update, but we've had 323 come out. We see 4.0
Hmm.
going on, and we know what's going on with 324.
Yep.
How do you feel like they are doing compared to the expectations they set last year?
You saying expectations from CitizenCon?
From CitizenCon, and then also the Inside Star Citizen Jared was in December, where he named like the different things that he would want to see. You
Oh yeah.
might not be able to pull that up off the top of your head, but the general idea of those features they were talking about. How you feeling about their progress on that stuff?
Um. So the one thing that's worried me is about the ships that they showed off because we haven't. What have we seen? Like maybe half of the ships that they teased. Um. I was kind of hoping we might see that. What is it? The new Mirai, the big heavy fighter. You know, during Alien Week, and to me, I felt like that was a missed opportunity. So what's going on with that? Um. Maybe it'll still make it before CitizenCon, but I don't know. I think Alien Weeks has been kind of weak the last few years, so I was really surprised that they teased it and then didn't actually put it out. But other than the ships, I mean the 323 features was pretty big. I mean, and we did see a lot of that stuff in CitizenCon. Of course, the base building tease, I didn't expect to see anything for that, and probably still won't until maybe not even next year. If 4.0 makes it before CitizenCon, then to me I'll be happy. If you know, we still had questions about server meshing, and then getting to see it in Evocati in like what January, February, March around there, that made me feel better. I'm not going to lie about that. Still some things to work out, but again, we still haven't seen it since then either. So they've had 2 or 3 months, and I know they just tried to get it up and running last night, and then I don't think it actually made it last night. I think they actually had to stop the servers, and then they said they scheduled for another time or something. But I mean, I was downloading it when that happened. So again, I don't know what happened, but I'm curious to see how far server meshing's come, what it's going to look like in 4.0. The bigger thing, though, I think, is that server meshing is really going to mature in the year following 4.0.
Yeah.
So I think we're definitely going to see it really. I think a 4.0 release is going to get the job done. It's probably going to offer a little bit better performance for us. We're going to maybe get to see a few more people on in what they call the whole system. But I expect it to really shine in 2025.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of similar to the 3.0 situation where it took until like 3.3 for the game to start playing good after 3.0 dropped, even though 3.0 was the one that changed the game. So, 4.0 is going to be like a big change, but I would probably hesitate to say it's going to be super enjoyable at first. Although they're definitely in a different place now. Like there's going to be a lot of eyes on 4.0. This is, I mean, it's server meshing. The media really wants to see what Star Citizen has done with all this time and money, and I think this is going to be, there's just going to be a lot of eyes on this launch, and as much as I expect it to be rough, I don't know if they, like, I don't want to say they can't afford for it to be rough, but it's a huge missed opportunity if it is.
Well, I mean, I there were many people calling 323 the next 318 before it released, and I think it released okay. It definitely was a 318, but I think 323 came along, and it definitely was. You know, it wasn't bad, and I think I was a little bit surprised by that. 4.0 is a bigger shift as far as what they're doing, but I don't know. I feel like 4.0 may not be that bad. I just don't think we're going to get the full effect of it. And I mean, of course, I think we're going to have the same things we're still having now. You're having issues with, FPS combat and things like that. I think we're still going to have those things, but I don't know if we're going to see like a whole bunch of new issues. But, again, with server meshing, it may bring about a bunch of new issues. So it's just a wait and see thing. I am kind of curious. So you were actually sitting there whenever they showed off the server meshing last year, the things going from server to server. How was that? Like, how was that being in the room with all those people and seeing that?
Funny enough, actually, me and
Don't,
Morphologist,
don't say you missed it.
we were sitting together in the front row and enjoying the show. And we were like, you know what? The rest of the day and probably tomorrow, we're going to want to be busy doing stuff and seeing things. Maybe we should go and check out Pyro before everybody else comes and checks it out. So
Oh, no.
we went out and got in line for Pyro, and lo and behold, hundreds of other people were thinking the same thing. So we stood in line for like 15 minutes watching the screens in the distance as the first demo to ever take place of server meshing happened, and we were missing it. And we were like, oh my God, we're right next to the front of the line. Do we go back? Do we stay here? What do we do? We went back, but we ended up missing like most of the demo. So it was a little,
Wow.
it wasn't as grand as it could have been, but catching the last bit of it and watching it over again on my own on the computer, it was really cool. I would say the most impressive or the best part of being there in person was probably the Squadron 42 update, just because it felt like a real showcase, like it felt like you were at a BlizzCon or at E3 or something where there's like a big AAA professional studio that knows what they're doing is putting on this demo to show off their game. And that was the first time it felt like they really had it down, and the energy in the room was crazy.
Yeah, it seemed like it was. And that didn't feel like a hype video. It felt like, it felt different. So yeah, that was definitely a great video. Yeah, that's crazy though. You guys stepped away at the wrong time.
Yeah, that was disappointing. There was also another time when we were going to do a bit of like an interview, and I think it was character customization that was going on, which I have learned since that panel happened that some people really just don't like character customization or don't want to hear about it like at all. I don't understand it, but people are very not about it. I was super excited for it, and we stepped away for that part too. So that was bungled my CitizenCon experience a little bit there.
I love character creators in every game, especially when you can really get into it and do some good stuff with it. And like I said, I'm happy with it. I do like that we have the helmet button now that you can, I love that. So I do walk around and I'll take off my helmet more. So I do appreciate that. But it's the most of the stuff I play though, when you're actually on your ship, whatever, just because I don't want to forget, I always have my helmet on. So it's like people aren't really getting to see it, but I like that it's there. Definitely.
I don't have my helmet on, or I do have my helmet on a lot. I don't see myself, but I see it as a significant part of being an actual game, like a game that maybe you don't care about customization, but the game by definition is supposed to have customization. So seeing that become a priority, something that's happening, is another signal to me that the game is making some actual, real, tangible improvements. I know it doesn't add to the gameplay, but to me, it makes a more real game. And if I don't care about ship combat, but seeing precision ship combat allow you to target components makes it feel more like a game.
Yes. Yeah, I feel the same way. The character creator, it's one of those things where, you would have had to have it by 1.0, and there's probably a reason why they did it now too, as opposed to waiting any longer. And I'm glad they did. And also you're going to see the things that they came out with for the hair. It's going to transfer over to the fur for creatures and stuff, and the hair for them. So, I think it was definitely needed, and it came at a good time.
Yeah, I think it's probably Squadron 42 is why it came in.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And also I'm not equating character customization to ship combat. I know ship combat's more integral to the game, but my point is more though that the
Personal
way that
preference.
they're building the systems of the game, it's just another signal on top of the other things that people are doing
Yep.
in like FPS and places that make it feel more like a real game. And I love that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
What
Definitely.
are you when are you thinking we'll see 4.0? We were talking about that a little bit. Now the question's back up in the air because of 324. Do you think we're going to see it this year?
Is it? I don't know. I seen someone else. They posted on Twitter like immediately that we're not going to see 4.0 till Christmas, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that's true because I feel like the freight elevators and the cargo, for the most part, those are done features. They probably are going to have to get in there and do something evocati. They're going to get feedback. They're going to break something. They're going to get it fixed. It's just a matter of how long is that going to get it? How long is it going to take for that? And I see those as two different roads too. I mean, you've got that, but then 4.0 is kind of its own thing. Pyro and everything, it's not really dependent, I don't think, on too much of that. So I feel like you can get through this if it takes a month. Like I said, hopefully it doesn't push us too far into August if it goes that far. But I think you can still get evocati on 4.0, and to me, I feel like it's a loss if they don't have it in time for CitizenCon. It just does.
Yeah.
So my guess is late September, October. It's pretty much been my guess since they started mentioning 4.0 this year. So
look, CIG, I'm gonna save you some time. If you're gonna do another 4.0 themed CitizenCon, I would just don't worry about it. Just put out a long ISC. The community is going to absolutely have a field day with it if that happens. I can't even imagine it. I think we gotta have at least an open PTU by October or something.
Yeah, 100%. I don't see it going. I don't see it going to Christmas. I mean, they may not put anything else out after that, and that's fine. But I definitely see that coming out. I mean, it's a big loss if
That'd be
they
miserable.
don't put it out.
That would be, and not only would that mean 4.0 is not there by October, but that would mean that 324 is a 4-month, 5-month branch. That's not enough features. Like, it's just the freight elevators and stuff. That's not going to be enough change to keep people entertained until CitizenCon.
Definitely not. Yeah, I mean, the cargo missions are only going to keep people going, for a few months. The people that are going to come and go, for sure. There's just this year is it's a great year. You see so many things, but it's just not feature rich. And 4.0 is really going to add. 4.0 is just going to that's a big feature. That's huge. So
it's interesting because the stuff we've seen makes it feel like it will be feature rich. Whatever, like we've seen FPS scanning, quantum boost. I won't include base building in this because there's just no way. Like that's a small thing, but the FPS scanning, the quantum boost, the faction stuff, the reputation stuff, like these are things that feel like they'll make the year heavier on the feature side, but we only 323 has happened so far.
Go ahead.
I definitely think that 4.0 needs to come before CitizenCon because that would be one of the worst droughts we've had in this game if 324 comes out in July and then just nothing for 4 months.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely, especially as far as features go. I can't imagine, what would happen if they don't have that ready. Because, I mean, they talk about this is the biggest, and I know Squadron 42, and they're probably, my guess is they're going to announce a date for Squadron 42 at CitizenCon. So that news, I think, only carries you so far. I think that, if you don't have Pyro by that date, then I don't know what to tell them.
It's going to be rough.
Yeah.
All right. To finish things off, let's talk about a little wish list for the rest of the year. Since we've been talking about these different updates, what are like just the features that we haven't really talked much about, or maybe they have talked about, that you want to see by the end of this year in game?
I mean, the thing that I'm somebody who doesn't really care too much for ship bounties, kind of like you, I guess. But I still want to see live bounty hunting to be able to go out and get NPCs and capture them alive. I picked up the Zeus, the MR, for that reason. Not that it's going to be ready in time, but that was a ship that I liked because of that. Of course, your FPS scanning. I wish ship scanning was going to be in a good spot to where we could actually, but that's not even being worked on that we know of. But this is wish list. So, what I would really like to see though is being able to tow ships that are left around the verse. If we could go to Area 18 and tow off, Hercules that were left behind, that would be so great. As far as there's something else I've been really hoping that they'll do, and that is not that I know how people feel about new ships being revealed or concept ships, but I really want to see a medium salvage ship revealed.
Who would you want to see that from?
Oh, Argo wouldn't be bad. That would be an interesting choice, I think. That's probably the only one I've really thought of as Argo. But yeah, I would love to see a medium sized, something between the Vulture and the Reclaimer. Good, maybe 2-person, maybe 3-person, but definitely 2-person, bigger cargo, so you can actually maybe some of the ships that you can't really suck up with the Vulture because you'll lose money on. Some things like that.
It would be cool if the Vulcan could use its drones to do some kind of salvage stuff. Because I really like the Vulcan, but I guess that'd be a little bit smaller than what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I don't know a lot about the Vulcan.
Going back to what you said about towing, I do hope that we get missions for towing. They've talked about kind of things like that, and I was surprised that they didn't say anything about it since the SRVs come out.
Yeah, the SRV is something that a lot of players feel this way. It's kind of a letdown for anyone who owns it. But it's kind of funny because it's one of those ships where people are trying to find things to use it for, and so they do some really interesting things. Funny enough, I know we haven't talked about master modes at all, and I'm not an expert on it by no means, but it was kind of cool that master modes came along, and it's given people a chance to kind of tow ships, because with master modes, when you land, a lot of people just leave it in the quantum part of master modes, and so the shields are down. So if they just land their ship and forget about it, then it gives people with an SRV a chance to try to get it out of there. So that is kind of cool.
I've always been bummed out that, well, not always, but recently I guess I've been bummed out that master modes doesn't end up being a good way to let people default their ship as nav mode, because you can get salvaged or pulled away if your shields are down. I liked the idea that master modes could be a way people would know if somebody was aggressive. You turn on SCM and you know that they might attack you, versus everybody's in nav mode, you're in safe space, but that's not possible now. So hopefully there's another way to do that, because people are so tentative to interact with each other.
Yeah, my biggest complaint has been with mining and scanning with master modes, because you're having to switch back and forth so many times between, as you're trying to find things. I kind of wish there was a better way to do it than how it's implemented now, and I'm sure they will work on it, because it's really annoying to flip back and forth so often. But yeah. You mean
do you have to switch into SCM for scanning?
So the way it works is you are switching, like when you come out, you can scan stuff, but then if you actually go up on the rock and you actually want to take a look at it, a lot of times it's easier, especially for salvaging as well. It's easier to go into you hit M for the mode or whatever, and you go in and get close to it and you can look at it. If it winds up being rocks you're not really interested in, you move on, got to switch back over to your, the other scanning mode or the other master mode to get in there. So
yeah. I don't know what the long-term outlook of that system is. Like, what they're doing makes sense, but it's a little bit clunky the way that it works right now.
Yep, 100%.
I'm for 4.0 for the rest of the year. Man, I wish we got the new bounty hunting and the MR, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I'm hoping that the MR comes with the new bounty hunting, and that's why they're like, it's not coming this year. But yeah, it feels like that kind of stuff's far away. I think the biggest thing I want for this year is to see a dynamic economy come about.
Meanwhile, Tony Z has been AFK.
Yeah, dude, a couple people from our community ran into him. It was really, really weird coincidence, because I was putting out a video about him and the economy. I think it was just like a couple days later, and they actually ended up having dinner in a restaurant pretty close to him, and they got into a conversation talking to him about like what he's doing at the company right now and all this stuff. So it was a fun confirmation that he's still working on things there right before I put out a video that was like, where is this guy? But
Yeah.
it was also just, it was good to, know that he's still working on it, because the systems he proposed are very cool. And even
Yes.
if he is not working on them directly, we know he's kind of still part of it and overseeing it. If he wasn't there, there would be, I think, more of a chance that maybe his stuff wasn't being implemented, or not his stuff, but the stuff that he talked about. There are many more people than just him working on this. Tony Z is not the end all of the economy. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, as we saw, there is an economy team, which oddly enough, he was not in the video for when they did it on ISC a couple months ago. So, but I mean, I think they can do things. It's just, you have to wonder, are they going to scale back from some of the, like the last time we saw him on, must have been 2 years now or something. He, mind-blowing stuff, all great stuff. And then you also got to wonder, is that something else that's, waiting on server meshing too before they can implement it? So,
It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot.
It is.
It's all coming in patches that have numbers that are, at the end of the day, kind of arbitrary. 324, 4.0, whatever it is. It depends on the features they hold. And we know that 4.0 depends on server meshing, so we know we're getting server meshing this year. But everything else, basically up in the air.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we don't even know 100% if engineering is going to, they say it's, supposed to be there. But again, there's still a lot of testing that needs to happen. And we haven't really seen anything else added in Arena Commander yet. So, how deep is it going to be? Are they going to have to cut some of the features back on that? Because engineering is a cool thing. Again, some of my concerns, we're not talking about it, but some of my concerns about that too is how tedious is engineering going to be? Is it going to be really, kind of a pain in the butt to constantly keep the upkeep up on your ship? There's a lot of questions there as well. So
yeah, man, it's going to be rough. But that
For
about
real.
wraps us up for the day. Thank you so much for joining me for this talk, looking a little bit more into the patches that are going on, and hopefully answering some questions, or maybe just adding a little more to the conversation surrounding this whole 324 thing, and everybody's favorite 1.0. Before you go, though, you want to let people know where they can find your own content and what that content is?
Yeah, so as far as like engaging with me, you're welcome to engage with me on Twitter. I'm pretty active there. As far as looking for my content, I'm on YouTube at Castle Black Gaming. You can also check me out now on Twitch, where you'll see me usually Mondays and Wednesdays, Eastern time in the afternoons to the evenings. So, yep.
Cool. Thank you again for coming on the show. And everybody who's watching, whether you're live, thank you, by the way, for coming here live, or watching on YouTube, or just listening audio on our audio platforms. The audio podcast is actually ad-free, supported by our supporters. And supporters actually get to come in here and watch every single episode live. This is the rare sort of live show that we do every once in a while, but if you'd like to come and join us every single week, bringing in a new guest and talking about topics around Star Citizen, you can, if you're a Twitch subscriber, Patreon member, or YouTube member. And that about wraps us up. So thanks again for speaking with me, Casa. I hope we get a 1.0 update sometime soon, and maybe we can have another show again to have that talk. But until then, my friend, I will catch you later, and everybody else, I'll see you all next week. Thanks again.
Not saying any other